Hey everyone, welcome to Up All Night DIY. I'm Monica. Thanks for joining me. Today's the Power Up Collab, where the creators will show their creative process using power tools. I'm really excited to be participating along with all of these very talented creators. Our host is Robin of Crafts Unleashed by Robin. Our co-host is Zaina of OK at Home DIY. Links to our host and co-host channels, as well as the playlist and all supplies, are in the description box. I'm making this turkey candle lamp, so let's get into it. I traced my design onto a 3/4 inch thick piece of sanded plywood. I'll head over to my scroll saw to cut it out. I just follow my lines and let the blade do its thing, just taking my time, gently guiding the wood. I don't push too hard because I don't want the blade to snap. This turkey will have a pumpkin cutout in the center of his belly. So now I'll trace my pumpkin onto my turkey. Don't mind the hole in my sleeve. This is my workshop sweatshirt. It's a hot mess, and it's my favorite. Okay, over at the drill press, I will drill a hole through the pumpkin because I'll slide my blade in there to cut it out. You'll see what I mean. Super easy to operate. Just turn it on, turn the wheel, and the drill bit drills a perfect hole right through my pumpkin. I'll pop my blade out of its carriage by loosening the tension. I adjust the foot to accommodate my wood. That'll keep the wood from bouncing. Then, I'll thread the blade through the hole and insert the blade back into its carriage, and then I'll tighten the tension bar. That little black tube is an air blower. It blows the air out to keep the sawdust out of your line of sight. And away we go. The blade felt a little loose there to me, so I just added more tension. I cut the circular part of the pumpkin out first, and I remove it, and then I'll cut out the stem. I remove the blade and the wood. I'll measure along the bottom of my turkey to see how long I want my base. It measures 13 inches, so I'm going to make my base 10 inches. You could make the base the same length as the turkey, or even go shorter than 10 inches, but I felt 10 inches was good for me. Over at the miter saw, I just align my mark with the laser and cut. Couldn't be easier, and it's a pretty clean cut, so it only needs a little bit of sanding. To sand the pumpkin cutout, I'm going to use my Dremel. It's really not too bad, but the nap of the wood is raised a bit, and it's rough in some places, and on the back, it's a bit splintered, so the Dremel will make easy work of it. And I'll vacuum up the sawdust so it's tidy for the next time. Okay, before painting, I'll use a rag to wipe off any remaining sawdust. I'll start by base coating the turkey's feathers with Mississippi mud. And of course, I do the edges too. So my first coat has raised the nap slightly, so I'll lightly sand before my second coat. It'll make for a smoother, nicer top coat. And everything will get 2 coats. To stripe my feathers, I'll start with the color straw and make like a rainbow arc. My first color will be closest to the edge. I'll slightly overlap my next color, which is Bittersweet orange, on top of the straw. And I slightly overlap the Bittersweet orange with watermelon, and the watermelon with passion. I'll add a thin stripe of Irish moss between the orange and the red. I think you can see it a little bit better here. I'll base coat his face and body with Latte. I'll have all the colors and paint brands that I used in the description box. I'll paint his hat with charcoal, which is a very soft black or a very deep gray. I always cut my character's features from cardstock, which I'll trace on. I do this so if I decide to make another, say like a set, they're consistent. His hat buckle, his beak, the hay he sits on, and his base will all be painted straw. Now I know this color straw is kind of hard to see against the Latte, but I'll take care of that later when I shade. On the base, I'll paint the top and 3 of the sides. The one side I'll leave raw. I'll paint his wattle and his bandana with watermelon. The inside edge of the pumpkin, I'm appropriately painting with the color pumpkin. The stem is Irish moss. I'll be shading him with golden brown and floating medium. But first, I'll paint lines where his eyes will go. And I'll give him little eyebrows. And I'll also use the golden brown to dry brush his cheeks. Okay, onto the shading. Dip my brush into the float and work it into the bristles. I side load by scooping a paint onto one of the corners of my brush, and I'll stroke it onto my plate to get that gradient of color. You can see the color goes from dark to light in like an ombre effect. I'm starting under his brim and working around his face and body. I keep the paint side of my brush to the edge. So you can see the paint side of my brush is closest to the edge of his beak and his wattle and the lines under his eyes and so on. Anywhere where I want the shadow to be the deepest, that's where I'll put the paint side of my brush, if that makes sense. So I jacked up this one wing, but we'll come back and I'll show you how I fix it. It's an easy fix. But first I'll just finish shading the rest of them. So what I'm doing is wiping some float medium over the paint to reactivate it a little bit, and then I'll wipe it off with the tail, and then I'll paint over it with Latte before giving it another go at the shading. That's much better. I'm using the golden brown to shade the hay as well. So now I'll add shading on the inside of his beak and his buckle as well. I'm dry brushing some golden brown to the hay to give it some definition, and then I'll add some buttercream to that as well. It'll give it texture. This is the buttercream here. That's like an off-white color. I'll shade around the pumpkin with pumpkin and around the stem with Irish moss. And each time I'm reloading my brush, I'm also dipping the other corner into the float to keep the gradient of color going. His bandana will get some Irish moss stripes. I'm using my liner for this and just kind of following the ripples of the scarf. I like to build my color with layers, so I'll shade around him with warm sunset, just alongside the golden brown shading. I don't want to cover the golden brown, I just want to kind of accent it. His wattle and bandana are shaded with passion. And I'll come in and shade in those ripples to his bandana. I'm using black to shade his hat. This is another reason why I like to use charcoal as a base color instead of black, because then I can rely on the black for my shading. And I make sure to get around that buckle too. I'll shade between his feathers with Bittersweet chocolate. Once his feathers are shaded, I shade completely around his body to add dimension. Using a dowel, I'll dot his eyes with charcoal. Next, on his feathers, I'll add a purple dot in the orange part of his feathers and an orange dot to the purple part of his feathers. And finally, I'll highlight with white. And I'll add highlight dots to his eyes and cheeks and the dots on his feathers. Before I assemble him, I'll spray him with a clear matte sealer. I'll use wood glue on the unpainted side of the base and attach it behind him. I always do this part on a level surface. Now that the glue has set, I'll add these corner brackets to attach the base to the turkey. I'll mark the holes with a pencil, drill pilot holes, then screw them on. Easy peasy, no worries. I use a glue dot on the bottom of my electric candle to keep it from shifting once it's in place. And there's old Tom Turkey, ready for Thanksgiving. Aw, isn't he cute? Please be sure to check out the playlist to see all the cool stuff that all the awesome creators make. Also, please check out the hosts' channels. They're linked below. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing, give me a thumbs up, leave me a comment, all that good stuff. Tick the bell icon so you can get notified every time I upload. I hope you had fun watching. I sure had fun making this guy. Stay creative, my friends. Thanks for hanging with me. See you next time. Up all night with Monica.